short notice. I hadn't actually planned to present today, so I'll just cobble something together. This is really a sneak preview of something that's going to get announced at the end of September in London at the Personal Information Economy Conference. This is me, Andy Tobin. This is not a sales pitch, by the way, as you'll find out. I think, where is it gone? Sales pitches should be announced, so this is not a sales pitch. So Sovereign is a global identity network that's being built at the moment. It's based on a public permissioned ledger, so we're back to real blockchain land here. And it's designed specifically for self-sovereign identity. So it's not a generic ledger, it's a specific identity ledger. And it's for people and for organisations who need to create a self-sovereign identity that combines the three things that have been so hard to achieve so far, which is control, security, and portability. Evonym is a US-based company, fairly small, about 20 at the moment, just received several $1 million in private funding, so expanding very quickly. Evonym has developed the software that makes a sovereign ledger run. It's open source, and Evonym is gifting that software to an organisation called the Sovereign Foundation. The Sovereign Foundation is going to provide the thing that a lot of open ledgers don't have at the moment, which is a layer of governance. It's a thin layer, but it's just thick enough to ensure that the ledger is going to run properly and be controlled and managed in the interests of the user, the users of it. So it's what we call a public permission ledger. It's public in that anyone can access it. If you access it, all you'll do is you'll see a list of transactions and you won't be able to see what's in those transactions. The transactions can contain personal data or pointers to personal data, and every transaction is locked by the individual to whom it pertains. It's permissioned in that only entities that are allowed in can run nodes that make the network operate. So you can't just run a node like a Bitcoin miner. There's no mining involved here. There's a question about intensive computational requirements to make ledgers of this sort work. That's not the case here because we're not doing mining. There's no ether that you need to buy. That's why this is a permission network. So organisations that come in will need to pass a certain number of requirements set down by the trust framework that the Sovereign Foundation is putting in place now, and they'll need to pass certain technology requirements as well. But you can run a sovereign node on a very small bit of processing. In fact, Marcus has got one running on, was it a quad-core CPU or something like that? So it doesn't take much computational capacity. So it's different to Bitcoin and Ethereum. It's different to Corda, which is closed within banks only. The best way to think of it is an ATM network. Anyone can go to an ATM, and if you've got a card, you can put it in and access your account. But nobody can just set up ATMs and connect them to Visa. You've got to pass certain tests to get in. Network of nodes, once mature, built up around the world, that will be run by organisations that are part of the Sovereign Foundation. The sovereign ledger mechanism itself, if you're into this kind of stuff, works on redundant Byzantine fault tolerance. There's a whole world Wikipedia on that if you want to go and look at it. It's run by nodes. The nodes are run by stewards. Stewards are permitted to run nodes by the Sovereign Foundation. If a node misbehaves, you can throw them out, give them a yellow card, and so on. So the best way to think of it is a distributed identity network, or maybe even a distributed personal data store, that is really there as a public utility. Organisations like Evonym and others can build on top of it. So if you want to create an application that does KYC, if you want to create an application that writes IDP, identity provider type proofs onto here, you can do that. If you want to create an employment screening application to check people's credentials, you can do that. So there was a question up there about how single ID makes money. The way Evonym is going to make money is by creating really good apps that people want to use that sit on top of this, but anybody else can do that as well. So completely open, fire away. Not yet though. Soon. I'll just skip past these two. So being a data layer of this sort, and individuals and organisations having their own self-sovereign identity, you don't need to have complex attribute exchange hubs anymore. The sort of method of use would be that if I wanted to set up a bank account, for example, that bank would send a challenge to me saying I need to see name, address, date of birth, proof of address, proof of residence in whichever country, whatever their KYC requirements are. I would simply point them at the ledger entries that I've got for them to look at. I would give them access to those. They can open those up, look at them, and they can verify who wrote those entries as well, which is key. So you would really want authoritative sources to write, and authoritative sources will write because they often want to read as well. And once that has been done, a link contract is made between myself and that bank that shows that they have consent to use my data and I've given them consent to use it. So that's pretty much it. Coffee coming up. As I say, we're announcing on the 29th at the PI conference, and we'll be asking people to come and get involved. Thank you.